Hello and welcome to Angier Hope. Angier Hope is a partnership of 4 churches in the Angier area. We've come together, put together video resources to help people deal with all sorts of matters of life, dealing with marriage, parenting, dealing with addictions, dealing with mental, emotional health, and even financial crisis. I'm going to say right off from the get-go, if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, find that subscribe button and that notifications button and make sure you smash it. Smash the button as if the hills are alive with the sound of music. Do it with authority. All right. But today we're covering what is an extremely important topic, and that is dealing with addiction, and particularly talking about dealing with addiction to pain medication, which is a little bit different than some of the other drugs that we think of when we think about drug addiction. This one doesn't have kind of the social stigma of some of the other drugs, the recreational variety, heroin, meth, etc. But this is as big a problem, and depending on how you look at it, probably a worse problem, because this is super white collar and blue collar. It doesn't matter where you are on the socioeconomic spectrum, how old you are. This affects all sorts of households everywhere, and so it's a dire problem. And so we want to speak a little bit of truth, shed a little bit of light into this topic. I'm joined here immediately to my right with Pastor Chris Turner of Neels Creek Baptist Church, and to his right is actually 2 things. One, his better half, and number 2, our first ever guest, other than the 4 pastors of the 4 churches, to join us on one of our Angier Hope videos. So this is Dr. Melissa Turner. She has her doctorate. She's a PharmD. So we're going to be gleaning a lot of information from you, and just hoping to learn a lot from you. Why is this a problem? And so I'm just going to launch a generic question in your direction, like, why is addiction to pain meds such a problem, or why are just pain meds a problem to begin with?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons. One, pain is subjective, so it's something that is difficult to measure and to track. Unlike if your blood pressure is high, we can check your blood pressure. If your cholesterol is high, we can check that. But pain is something that you tell your doctor how you're feeling, but we can't know for sure if that's actually what's going on. And there's also different types of pain. And since it's something that is subjective and something that we can't measure, it's sometimes hard to treat and pinpoint and get you the right medication for.
Mm-hmm. And some people will have a different tolerance to pain, right? So what I might need after a surgery to help me recover might be completely different than what Rick might need if we were going through the same surgery.
Yeah, so not just for pain medications, but all medications, what may work for one person may not work for another. And there's a lot of different things that factor into that. One is your age, your weight, kidney function, liver function, other medications you take, whether that's prescription or over-the-counter, and genetics factor into medications as well. So there's a lot of different things that can determine how well a medication works.
So, I know that government has tried to get involved a little bit over the last several years. Mm-hmm. I consider myself to be a bit of an expert when it comes to pain meds. I've had 3 surgeries on my right knee, 1 on my left knee, 1 on this shoulder, 1 on this shoulder, 1 on this wrist. I'm virtually bionic at this point. I've got another knee surgery coming up in the not too distant future. And I've noticed that even between my 2 shoulder surgeries, when I had this one, they gave me enough medication, I could have killed myself. And by the time a few years later, when I had shoulder surgery on my left arm, they didn't give me virtually anything. It didn't even take the edge off. Right. And so I know that the government is trying to get involved, but what else is happening out in the world to help to try to prevent people from overdosing or even getting addicted?
Yeah, so there have been some changes in the rules and regulations as far as what can be prescribed, the length of time that it can be prescribed, and who can actually prescribe it. So what type of doctor are they depends on what they can prescribe now. So we have seen that even a 5-day course of an opioid pain medication can lead to dependence. So that's why there's been this big push to cut back on the amount that you get in a prescription, especially after a surgery, so that we can prevent the potential addiction.
So, what does addiction to pain meds? What does that look like?
So it can be different for a lot of people. It can be different symptoms like increased heart rate, sweating, nausea, vomiting, different things. But there are sort of two facets to it. There is a physical dependence that can develop where sort of like a tolerance, so to speak, where your body will adjust to the medicine over time and you end up needing more. But then there's also that psychological dependence or addiction where you desire to have more medication even though you don't really need it.
So, could you go further into that last part? Like, you don't need it, but you psychologically, I guess, is it so you're talking about a craving, or is it a delusion that, no, I need more when you really don't? Like, how would you characterize that?
And that may vary between the people as far as how long they've been taking the medication. Family history can factor into that. Are there other medications that they're taking? Alcohol? It all factors into that. And yes, it's a desire to want more even though you don't really need it. That the beneficial, you get the pain relief, but there's also sort of a high that you get and you enjoy that. And when you come out of that, you're like, oh, I feel really bad. I don't want to feel like this, so I'm going to try to get myself back to where I was.
So, you mentioned a little before when we were talking about the expectations regarding why someone takes pain meds. And I thought it was an interesting point because I had never quite thought of it in those terms, which is some people think that you take pain meds to get rid of all your pain, but that's not necessarily so.
Right, yeah. So I think a lot of addictions and dependence for the pain medication comes out of those unrealistic expectations where people think, I have this pain, I'm going to take this medication, and it's going to completely eliminate my pain, but that's not true. And so if the provider doesn't set those expectations to start with at the beginning, then that can lead to danger later down the road. So the goal of the pain medication is to bring your pain down so that you can function better, that you can have a better quality of life, but it is not to completely and 100% eliminate your pain forever and ever. Pain medications are going to help bring it down so that you can continue to work or go to school and drive and things like that so that you can function, but it's not to completely eliminate your pain.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to know because if I'm going into surgery and I know I'm going to get some pain meds afterwards, that the point is not 100% pain relief. It's make it manageable to function, which means that I need to put on my big boy pants and understand that, hey, this is going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm not going to be at my best. And that's easier said if we're talking about a short-term scenario. But there are people that do deal with some chronic problems.
Sure.
But it's just still like to understand, unfortunately, this is your plight now, in that you're going to have to accept a certain degree amount of pain, and that the point of the meds, like you said, is just simply bring it to a point where you can manage through.
Yeah. And then what are some other things that you can do in addition to the pain medication so that maybe you don't need as much? And that's where talking to your doctor, talking to a pharmacist like myself who can help you with those either over-the-counter or non-drug therapies to help you with your pain.
Physical therapy.
Right.
Exercises,
Yeah.
certain things like that.
Oh, yeah. There's so many different ways that we can help you. So you just have to know what the expectations are, and if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out to your doctor and say, this isn't working, I'm struggling, I'm experiencing this, or talk to your pharmacist.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, like even diet can make a big difference.
Sure.
Like if you have a diet that causes an inflammatory response,
Right.
which is an anti-inflammatory response, that can have a radical effect in how someone's dealing or coping with pain.
Right.
So let me ask you this: someone's addicted to pain meds. What are we looking at? If they don't come off, if they don't get off the pain meds, if they don't get help, what are we looking at? What's happening to their body? What's their trajectory? Why? Like, basically, I'm asking, why is this so bad?
Well, unfortunately, with the addiction to the pain medications, it ends up affecting all areas of a person's life. Because if it changes their behavior, if they stop going to work, then they don't have the money, and then they have trouble paying their bills, and that can affect their marriage, their relationship with their children. It just spirals and just affects so many different places in a person's life. And so there is help out there, but you have to be willing to get that help. No one else can change this for you. You have to take that next step to realize that the trajectory that I'm on is only going to lead to more and more destruction. So I have to get help.
And you've seen this even, in your years working retail, to the point that people are breaking in people's houses, or they're trying to rob the pharmacy, or they are fraudulently writing, forging prescriptions, all of this, which again then just kind of compounds this. And so, I think for me, Rick, that's really one of the dangers, is because it doesn't carry the same stigma, that people don't view this as having to go to a bad part of town to get their hands on it, that this is not one of those hard drugs, but the same end result, it can be just as bad, maybe even worse in some cases. I mean, it leads down that same path of destruction.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, tell us a little bit about, just some warning signs, for people, if someone suspects that maybe their loved one may be getting into this area, or, if they're just concerned and even want to try to broach this conversation, with a loved one that maybe is taking some pretty strong medication. What are some warning signs to kind of be aware of?
Definitely changes in a person's behavior, how they're talking and acting, changes in, if they're not going to work, or if they're not completing tasks, they're not showing up when they need to be. That's really difficult to, go to someone that you love and say, I'm really concerned about you. You don't want to accuse them of abusing pain medications, but as long as you approach it from a place of, I'm concerned, I've noticed some changes in the way you act, the way you talk, things that you do. If you're not coming home when you said you would, what's going on, I want to help you. And then using a resource like Angier Hope and the ministers in our churches, in our area, to reach out and say, I need some help. What resources are available to help me?
Yeah. I know one thing, and this is something I noticed, just anecdotal experience. Which surgery was it? Left knee ACL tear. So they gave me Percocet.
Uh-huh.
So it was a Thursday procedure. So it's outpatient. So I was home that evening. So taking Percocet Friday, Saturday, and I rented a bunch of movies. This is back when they had Blockbusters. There are these brick and mortar stores where you went and actually, oh man, I miss them. And so I'd already gone and rented a bunch of movies. I was just going to watch them over the weekend, and a bunch of like God movies. Stuff like, like Bloodsport, Tombstone, just like dude movies. And I'm watching them, and I found myself actually, believe it or not, getting weepy. Like, I got like all like sad over like parts of it, and then I'm like, what's wrong with me? And then the next day when I went to the doctor for the post-op kind of a thing, he has, oh, you doing? It's like, man, I feel like super emotional. And he's like, oh, it's the Percocet. That some people, it literally causes you to bottom out, like, basically get depressed.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that could be perhaps a red flag if you see someone that all of a sudden is kind of bottoming out emotionally. Maybe that they're on these opioids.
Yeah, just changes in their demeanor, how they act, and it's not what they normally do, how they normally act.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you've talked a little bit about some of the things that the pharmaceutical and the medical industry profession is trying to do to combat this. What are some things that we can do, in our own home to kind of help safeguard against abuses in this, whether it's for the person that the medicine was prescribed for, or just other people that may be in the home?
So definitely, if for pain medications, you want to use the lowest dose for the shortest period of time. And if you finish it, you're good. You're going back to your life. You don't think that you need any more, but you have some pills left over, you definitely want to properly dispose of them. While you are taking them, you want to make sure they're locked up and that they're in a secure place that no one else, especially children, can have access to. And then there are a lot of pharmacies that will have disposal units in the store where you can take unwanted medications and drop it off. There are national drug take-back days throughout the year, and the police department and local pharmacies usually partner up to take those medications, and they will destroy them. But just making sure you keep track of your medications, and you're knowing, how many pills do I start with, how many should I have left. So if there's any pills missing, you can investigate and see what's going on. So keeping them locked up and then getting rid of them once you're finished using them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that just affects people from all walks of life. We've even seen it even in the pharmacy profession, that people who do this for a living, then all of a sudden, succumb to this, and just all of their work, everything just ruins their career. And so it is one of those areas of addiction that really knows no bounds, and it's a huge issue in our communities. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we end this video, I know that part of what you are doing now, in your career, is helping people specifically with pain medication, understanding how their body metabolizes that. So maybe say just a word about that and what you do now as a part of using your pharmacy degree.
Okay. So my business name is Tar Heel PJEC Consulting. And the point of what I do is to help people understand how their DNA affects their medications. So with a simple cheek swab, we send it off to the lab, and we can get information back on over 100 different medications so that we can know how you specifically may respond to medication, so that you aren't given a medication that may not work for you or could potentially be harmful for you to take. And what I really love is that it's a one-time test, and you have the information for the rest of your life.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
It really is. That we've reached certain levels of technological medical advancement that a simple test like that could set you further in dealing with pain management in a way appropriate to you.
Right.
Because there can't be a cookie-cutter thing, which is how we've been doing it for forever. And which is what's caused so many problems to a large degree.
Yeah.
So we know that this is a major issue in our society and culture. If you're someone out there and you happen to be watching this video and you are addicted to pain meds, know a couple of things. Number one, there is hope. Our churches here in the Angier area, we're here to help you, support you, come alongside you to help you. There are hospitals, physicians, there are other groups and organizations in the area that are here to help people to deal with these kinds of issues. So there is hope. Many, many people have come off of pain meds and been able to thrive and live good lives afterwards. But it really comes down to you taking that first step. So if you need to reach out to us here at Angier Hope, just send an email to angierhope.com or email address. Andrew, what is it? What's our email address? It's info,
email address.
It's info@angierhope.com. Send us an email. We're here to help. Our individual churches, if you look on our website, angierhope.com, you can reach out to our individual churches, and we're here to help you as much as possible. And just know this, that if you turn to God, nothing's impossible.
That's right.
If you turn to God, nothing's impossible. There is plenty of help. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been fun. Reverend,
Yes.
thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for everything. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, be sure you find that subscribe and that like button and smash it as if the hills are alive with the sound of music. Have a good day.